Good morning, good afternoon to everyone, and welcome to our webinar today. I am Violeta. I have with me Suraj from the product management team, who will be the man of the day. We have also Santosh from the product management team, who is here to answer any of the questions you guys might have. And there is also my colleague Tom. We are all of us. We are here to help you and to answer your questions in case you need any help from our side. One more thing that I would like to add, and then I'm done with the intro part. Keep in mind that this session will be mainly focusing on a demo. So we have a couple of slides to introduce the topic, and then Suraj will demonstrate everything in the OCI Cloud Console. Everything you see today has an educational scope. So in case anyone would like to use our services further, you may connect with somebody from the Oracle account team. Also, in case you guys watch any of our sessions, previous sessions recordings in the future, keep in mind that you might see some small differences within the Cloud Console menu because our products are enhanced on a regular basis. That was all from my side. I would like to invite Suraj now. Suraj, the floor is yours.
Thanks, folks, for joining. Good morning, good afternoon, so wherever you're joining from. So, yeah, I'm Suraj Ramesh. I am the product manager for the full stack disaster recovery service. I'm based out in India. I'm part of the Oracle database maximum availability product management team within the database development organization. So the service is kind of a new service which we launched sometime in October 2022 last year. So reasonably new service. So in the poll itself, I understood 40, 60, like 40% are kind of aware about the service, and 60% have confirmed they're not aware about the service. So I'm going to introduce few slides with to understand what is full stack disaster recovery service means, and then I will be showing in action about we have a sample app which I'm going to use, how you can integrate within the full stack DR service to perform switchover operation in an automated manner. So that's my plan. So let me spend few minutes, maybe 5 to 10 minutes, to go through a few other slides so that you understand the service in nutshell. And before going to the service, right, I just want to, because the audience, I don't know, like the familiarity, what kind of level of either developer or the infrastructure. So I just want to introduce some of the disaster recovery basic terminology so that you kind of understand what exactly the full stack DR is trying to solve. So starting with the basics, right? So I'm sure you are aware about what is disaster recovery and why it's quite important for any application, right? So basically, disaster recovery is you're kind of setting up a redundant application environment which can withstand a disaster, right? So either it can be a natural disaster if something happens, or in case for planned maintenance, right? If you want to do a planned maintenance, disaster recovery setup is quite important to lower your downtime of your application, right? And apart from that, disaster recovery is important for compliance regulations as well, right? So depending on the industry you are in, certain regulatory guidelines are needs to be followed for maintaining the proper disaster recovery setup. So there are two concepts we always speak when we talk about disaster recovery. I just want to introduce that as well. One we call as RTO, which is recovery time objective. So basically what RTOs means, like how quickly you can bring your application back up, right? So it's kind of what is your downtime, or how quickly you can bring up your application. That's what the RTOs defines. And then RPO is how much transactions you can stand to lose, right? So that is basically depending on your backup configuration and how you're replicating the data. Like if you're losing certain amount of data, right? So that's in terms of how much RPO we are talking about. So these are the two common terminologies we always speak about when we are talking about any disaster recovery related to any application. And then there are three options. This is an industry standard, nothing to do with Oracle or any service. So these are generally customers deploy their disaster recovery environment depending on their requirement, right? Or based upon their RTO and RPO. So the first option is backup. So as the name suggests, right, you are kind of relying on a backup to restore your disaster recovery setup, right? So that tend to have larger downtime and reasonably larger data loss because we don't have an existing DR setup or something. So you're completely creating new using the backup which you have, right? And the second option we are talking about is cold standby, right? So what mean by cold standby, right? You are replicating your data, like example your database or your application data through a replication for thing in the other region, but you don't have any infrastructure, or maybe you might be running in a minimal infrastructure, right? So that tend to have a better RTO, I mean, sorry, RPO, because you're replicating your data, but still it can relate to have a larger downtime, right? Because you have to create an infrastructure, everything, and then you need to bring your application back. The third one, which commonly used, is called warm standby. This is primarily used for all critical, business critical application. So you are maintaining an exact replica of your setup with from your production to the DR infrastructure. Then you are basically bringing your application back up in case if something happens, right? So these are common industry terminologies I just want to introduce to you, so that you understand while I speak about these terminologies in my coming slides or in my demo, right? So how OCI is addressing challenges, again, I don't want to go in detail, but key point to understand, I'm sure you are aware about, we have OC, Oracle public cloud region, 41 public cloud regions currently available, and few more are coming. And in from a disaster recovery perspective, right, the very important thing which customers are expecting is two regions within their same country, so that you're not spreading the data outside of the country. So to cater such requirements, right, Oracle is heavily focusing on to provide two regions within the country itself, right? So we have 12 plus such kind of a dual region country. So customers are really getting benefited in terms of how they can handle their disaster recovery scenarios. But other points are, you can read about it. But the main thing is, for disaster recovery, having two regions within the same country is quite important for all our customers. Okay, so now I'm going to introduce the service, which is the full stack DR service, right? So what this full stack DR is primarily meant for, right? So this is an example diagram you can see. So we have a production region, which is the primary OCI region, and we have a standby or a DR region. So by using this, right, like you have your application databases infrastructure has been deployed, and then you have a similar replica available in the other region, right, like the databases and then infrastructure and application. So depending on the what databases you are using, and then the respective storage you are using, you have a replication configured across those two regions or the infrastructure and the database. So full stack there can help you to orchestrate the disaster recovery runtime, like switchover or failover operations in an automated manner, right? So what the problem we are trying to solve with our service is, we are providing a framework or with this service. By using this, right, you can automate your disaster recovery orchestration. We have plans like switchover and failover. Depending on your use case, you can create two or you can create either one of them. But by using our service, you can completely automate the entire DR plan. I'm going to show some details about how it looks like if you do manually, but how we can take advantage of through our service in an automated manner. But in short, it provides a DR runtime for your entire application stack, right? So you can use a single click button to switch over your entire application stack from one region to another region. And the second point is automated DR plan creation. So what you can do is, once you start using our service, you can add in your necessary components depending on your application. So based on that, the service has the intelligence to create certain plans automatically, and then you get a choice to customize the plan according to your requirement, right? So that's in terms of additional extensibility you are getting on top of the default plan which we provide. And the final one is quite important, is all these operations can be handled or done from a single plane of glass, right? So you can relate, like whenever you're doing a disaster recovery process, right, it's going to be pretty tedious and you have to juggle around connecting to various teams and performing various tasks. But by using our service, once you create the plan and then construct it and have it ready, right, you can run the pre-checks, you can execute and monitor everything through a single pane of glass. So that's a kind of an experience which is customers are looking for, and we are providing within our service. So I'm sure now you got an understanding of what the full stack DR is means. And just spend a couple of slides more so that in terms of what business benefits, again, I'm not going to talk in detail because this focus session is focused on demo purely, but you get single pane of glass experience and you can do your disaster recovery operations at scale, right? Because generally, if you're talking about DR, you're going to do DR operations for multiple applications, right? So you can perform DR operations for various applications at one go using a service in a completely automated manner. And it's very easy to use. I will show it how quickly you can configure and go on. And then few other more benefits, right? So in terms of topology, again, there are a lot of topologies. I introduced three topologies in my initial slide, right? But customers have multiple topologies they follow depending on their application requirements. So any topology, right, you can bring in within the full stack DR. So we support any type of DR topology, and then we provide some inbuilt modules which I'll talk about in my demo. And you can do through console or using our CLIs or terraform, all the automation tools you can use within OCI to create the disaster recovery operations and the things within our service. And the final one I just want to end up with, this is a fully managed service, right? So being it's a fully managed service, you don't need to worry about managing a separate service or server to do the replication for full stack DR or something, right? So the backend of the service is completely managed by Oracle. So from a customer perspective, it's pretty easy to use and they can just get started within few minutes. One final thing I just want to highlight is, I'm sure you're aware, as I mentioned, we have 34 public cloud regions within OCI. So currently we are available, I mean, the service is available in these 20 regions, and we plan to roll out to the rest of the 14 regions in next 3 to 4 months. So in case if you're navigating to the console and if you don't see the service, right, maybe the service, you haven't rolled out to the service to that region yet, but you all these regions, right, which I mentioned, the service is already available, right? So in case, let's say if you're using Paris region, right, currently you will not be able to see the service because we haven't rolled out the service yet there. But as I mentioned, we plan to roll it out pretty soon. But these 20 regions, the service is already available. So you can get started with our service in these 20 regions if you're managing an infrastructure within OCI. And one final point I want to end before I go into the demo things, right? This service works only within OCI. So you need to have your infrastructure, everything within the OCI regions to get advantage of using the service. And we plan to provide hybrid support maybe in future. But as of today, if you want to take advantage of using the service, you need to have your infrastructure and all your applications within the OCI regions. Okay. So this is a sample application. I'm going to show a demo, right? MuShop is a sample app which we primarily demo to all of our customers for the OCI services. So as part of this architecture, right, what I have two regions. Okay, Ashburn is my primary region, and then Phoenix is my standby region. Okay, so from an architecture perspective, for the app, I have two node VMs. Okay, and then from a database perspective, I have my autonomous database created in the other region. Okay, so in the standby replication perspective, for databases, I have created the autonomous database, DataGuard database already. So the DataGuard has been set up between the primary and the standby database. And from an application perspective, I have configured the cross-region replication for the boot volumes of these two compute instances, and that has been pre-created ready. And if you notice, we don't have any virtual machines running here in the other region because I'm going to use our service to create the virtual machines during the DR runtime operation. So we have this cool functionality as well, which you can take advantage of. So if customers have okay with a longer RTO, or they don't want to have a virtual machines running in the other region, right, which is the DR region, we can use our service to create the VMs on the fly, right? So I'm using this architecture in such a way I'm not having any VMs in the DR region, but I have my boot and block volume cross-region region replication configured for my boot volumes, which is running in the primary region. And similarly, I have my object storage buckets where I've stored all my images for the application. For that, I've created the cross-region replication. And of course, I have load balancer running here in this region and then a load balancer running in this region so that depending on the application, wherever it runs, right, you can redirect the traffic to that respective load balancer. So I'm sure you understood the architecture of the demo, which we are going to see. So it's a pretty simple one. We have a simple app. It's running in 2 VM with a database with the autonomous data guard configured in the other region. And then from application perspective, I don't have any VMs running here, but I have the prerequisite of creating the boot and block volume storage replication as a cross region volume group. So I have already pre-created this environments and then created the configuration as well. So what I'm going to show in the demo is how you can get started with our service and how you can integrate with our service. And then we will go through the plan creation and customizing, and then we'll see the application, and then we'll see how the application is behaving before the switchover and how it's behaving after the switchover. Okay, so that's my plan. And then there are a few components within full stack DR. I will explain while I go through, but these are the high level components I just want to introduce. So the disaster recovery protection group, so that's the main construct of the full stack DR. So this is where we create a consistency group for each application so that you can say this is a master or everything for the full stack DR. So on below that you can create, add members, you can create plans, plan group, and then execution and so on. But just want to show you these are the core components within the full stack DR, but I will be explaining about in detail during my demo. Okay, so let's go on to the demo. Before the demo, right, I just want to show you one thing. I'm sure you'll be able to relate to this. So this is how a common run book or a DR steps looks like, right? So what I'm going to do, right, let's say currently I'm doing this kind of a task in a manual manner. I'm going to convert this plan into a completely an automated fashion using the full stack DR, right? So just an example, right? So we have a customer ABC, and these are the teams who are owning this task, and then we have the owner, and we have various tasks, and then how much time is take, right? So let's say what we are doing, let's say if we don't have a full stack DR at the moment, and we'll just go through these process, and then we'll understand the various tasks generally customers tend to do for whenever they want to invoke a DR runtime, right? So basically you have to prepare your run book, and then you have to engage all your teams in a Zoom call or a Slack group. And then once you have it, everything ready, right? So let's say we have people from application team, OS team, networking team, DBA team, and then someone who is coordinating all the tasks, right? So we want to tell the respective team to do their checks, like so app team will be doing their application checks, and then OS team will be doing the service of the VMs and then the application status, and then networking team will be doing the load balancer and DNS checks, and then DBA will be engaged to do the data guard and then the database health checks, right? So which you can easily relate, right? So this is how primarily customers are doing. I'm sure there are some automations which they use it for doing the DR, but still they have to go through a various steps of process, right? So that they can complete their DR. So once you go to that next task, right, then you have to engage people to do their respective task, right? So someone from app team will be doing the application shutdown of the servers, and then DBAs will be doing the switch of the database, and so on, right? You can relate, right? So this is pretty common. Many customers are using it for doing their disaster recovery runtime. So what I'm going to do is, right, for same task which I've explained in my architecture, I'm going to convert this into a completely an automated plan within the full stack DS service. So this plan I just estimated roughly, it's going to take 160 minutes for me, right? I just take some random numbers or some assumptions. So if some customers go through this process, right, let's assume they complete their switchover within 160 minutes, and we'll convert this into an automated plan within our season, and we'll see how quickly we can able to do the switchover operation within our service. Okay. So before that, Violetta, will you be able to open that poll so that let's see
Of
what the
course,
understanding of people, yeah, about the
of
service.
course, I'm right about to launch it. Hope you guys can see it.
Yeah, just to want to get a sense of understanding from what I spoke maybe for the last 15 minutes to just to make sure like you understood what exactly the service is offering, and then and just to check whether you you are able to understand what exactly the service does. Okay. Yeah, great. I see a lot of responses coming in, right? Yeah. One thing is good is, yeah, the second question I see OCI full stack DR works only across regions. Yeah, people are getting in kind of correct there. Okay, so kudos to you guys. And the first question I asked is OCI full stack DR service helps to automate disaster recovery dash, right? So provisioning, orchestration, and health checks. I think people are getting correct as well. So yeah, thanks for listening to me for the last 15 minutes. So I can surely understood like people got the service, what exactly it does. So thanks a lot for sharing your feedback or answering our polls on that. So let me go to the demo now. Okay, so thanks Violeta for that. So what I'm going to do now is this is how you can navigate to the service, right? So let me minimize this. So from OCI console, you can navigate to a section called migration and disaster recovery. Okay, and then from there you can navigate to a section called disaster recovery. So this is the landing page or the home page of using the disaster recovery service or the full stack DS service. Okay, so this is, we have just given some understanding of what the service is and so on, right? So let's create the protection group, right? So this is the starting point of what exactly we need to do for getting into the service, right? So I've opened few tabs so that I can do parallelly. So what I've did, I've opened one tab for Ashburn region, which is the primary region, and then I've created another tab for the Phoenix region, which is the standby region. Okay, so the first task I would like to do is creating the protection group. Okay, so this is the first task you need to create for getting started. So protection group, as I mentioned, it is a consistency group for any application, right? So for this MuShop application, I'm going to create one protection group. So I'm going to give a name, MuShop Cloud Coaching, and then this is my region, right? Ashburn. So I'm going to give as Ashburn. So you can give any name you want, and then you need to select the compartment. And then we ask for an object storage bucket because we store all the logs related to the full stack DR operations within the object storage bucket. So that's why we ask for a object storage. So it has to be a standard object storage bucket. So you can select one in case if you already have, or else you can create, and then you can just hit create. I will talk about the role and members in few seconds, but you just need to create the production group and providing a name. So while the primary region is getting created, right, let me just create another protection group in the standby region. So same place I've navigated to migration and disaster recovery protection group. And then if you notice, the region is Phoenix. So this is important because I want to create another protection group in the Phoenix region, right? So I just want to give a name, MuShop Cloud Coaching Phoenix. So again, select a compartment and then select the object storage bucket and then hit create. So this is how you can quickly create the production group. As you see, it's very easy. You can straight away start creating the production group by using our service. So once the production group is created, right, then we can associate the role. So now if you notice, right, I've created a production group. I have a bunch of others which I used in past. We don't have any role here, and we don't see the peer production group and then peer region as well. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to associate the role, right? So from a service perspective, or I mean, from an architecture perspective, we understood. I've told the Ashburn is going to my primary region, so I have to select this region or this production group as primary, and then the peer region is my Phoenix, which I have to select, and then select the peer production group, right, which I created Phoenix. So whichever production groups which is not peered, it will show up here. Since I don't have anything else beyond this, it automatically came here, and then you can hit an associate button. So again, like I've created a protection group and then now I started doing an association, right? So that from a service perspective, we understand which is the primary protection group and which is the DR protection group, right? So this is the first thing you need to do, create the protection group and then start associating the protection group, right? So now if you notice, the role has changed, right? So previously it was showing as empty. Now we can see this is primary, and then you can see this role in the other region as well, right? So the Phoenix role, I mean, the production group is showing a standby, and then which is the DR production group and so on. So this is the first thing you have to do, which we have done. And then the next thing is what are the members which is important for, I mean, which is relevant for this production group, right? And as per my architecture I talked about, right, I'll just go back here as well. So if you notice from an architecture perspective, maybe I can show this for, okay. So from an architecture perspective, we have the VMs, two VMs in this regions, which I need to add as product members. And then I also have my autonomous database, which is the database which I need to add. And then for the VMs, I have my boot and block volume, cross-region replication volume group, which I created. So from a members perspective, for this architecture, I need to add these two VMs and then the database and then the volume group for those two VMs. Okay, that these are the members I need to add in the primary production group. From the standby protection group, I'll be adding the standby DR database, which is the autonomous standby database. Apart from that, I don't need to add any members, right? Because the virtual machines is something I'm going to create, okay, for this architecture. But in case if you have different architecture, right? We have large customers who use kind of an active passive setup, which they have virtual machines already created. So if they have, then they can go ahead and add their VMs depending on their deployment choices, right? But for this demo, I'm going to add two VMs in the primary production group, and then the database, and then the storage volume group in the primary region, and then the standby region, I'm going to add only the database, standby database. So let's go ahead and do that. The console. Okay, so I am currently in the primary region. So go to the members, click add members. So let me first add the database, the autonomous database. So for whatever autonomous database which is running in my tenancy will show up here. And this is my database for this application, and I can go ahead and add. Okay, so this is very simple. So depending on the database type, right? So I will show about the other members as well. We support autonomous database for database, and then base DB, and then XSCS. And then from compute perspective, we support the virtual machines and then the dedicated virtual machine as well. And then from a storage perspective, we currently support the boot and block volume cross-region replication. But in future, we'll be adding few more native members in pretty soon as well. So if you see, notice the member of the autonomous database, which I've added, is showing up here in the members section. And then I'm going to add the compute VMs, right? So these are the four members I talked about. We support compute, autonomous database, base DB, and then XSCS, which is under the database umbrella, and then the volume group. So now I'm going to add the compute instance. Okay, so I'm going to add two compute instance, which is part of my application, right? So again, it will show up all my virtual machines running here, right? So in this, I have these two compute. This is relevant for my application. So I'm going to select this compute, which is MuShop 1234-0. And if you notice one thing, I'll just spend a minute to explain this concept. So we have this checkbox clicked here, and it says move instance on switchover and failover, right? So what this means, if you select this checkbox, right, we understand you are going to create a VM basically in the other region. Okay, so for my architecture, as I mentioned, I don't have a virtual machine running here. So for this, I have to select this move checkbox, which is basically create the VM in the other region. But if you don't have such deployments, right? So I've talked about active passive VM, then you have to basically uncheck this box, right? So that's a key differentiation you have to understand from a compute perspective. So for this demo, I'm going to select move instance, and the compartment, basically which compartment I have to select in the other region, I need to add that as well. And then the VNix, which VNix which is available in the source, I need to select. And then the target subnet, right, the destination subnet. So we ask for this one so that we understand all the metadata, so that it will help to create these instances in the other region. So if you have NSGs, you can add, but I don't have any NSGs. So that's how you can add in a compute instance into the production group as member. So if you notice, again, it is getting added, right? So you can see the database, the compute members adding. So while it's doing that, let me just jump into the other region so that we can save some time. I will add a member for my autonomous database, which is the standby database, right? So I need to select the autonomous database. So now if you notice, I'm in the Phoenix region, which is my standby protection group, where I'm just going to add only the autonomous database, standby database. So select the autonomous database as resource type, and then select the database, and then hit add. Right. So this will add as a member in my standby production group. Okay, so I'm just telling a differentiation. So while the compute is getting added, I just to set avoid, I mean, save some time, right? I've added my member into the standby production group. So let's go back to the primary and see whether the compute member is added. Still doing, yeah, I can see that this has been added now, right? So let's do the same thing for adding the second compute VM, right? So select the resource type as compute, and then select the instance which you want to move or as a member. So this is my second instance, and then again I have to click this checkbox so that I'm going to move this VM, and then select the destination compartment, which is my compartment, and then select add vnic and select the vnics which is relevant for this demo. Okay, so I am adding this as well and hit add. Okay, so now I've added both of my compute instances as members here. So I just need to add the storage volume group now, right? So let's just give a minute while doing that. And let's quickly verify the standby DB which is added. So now you can see from a standby production group, right? Which is the DR production group. I've added the members. So we don't need to add any other members here for this architecture because the VMs are going to get transitioned or created in the DR production group region. Okay, so now I've added the compute as well. So let's add the storage volume group, right? So again, we'll have two volume groups. So I'm going to add these two volume groups, right, as part of my demo. So the first one is getting added. So within few seconds, this will be showing up here. And then I'll be adding my final one as well on top of it. So while getting added, I see some questions here. I hope Santosh is kind of answering that. If you have any questions. Okay, I don't see any questions here. Okay, so you can ask questions if you have any in the chat panel. I mean Q&A panel. We have Santosh to help if you have any questions. Okay, so now let's see the members. Yeah, I can see the storage volume group has been added. The final one, I'm going to add the other storage volume group, right? So I have two volume groups for the two compute instance. I'm just going to add both here. So with this, I've added all my members, which is relevant for this application in both primary and the standby region. Okay, so what we have seen is we have created the protection groups in both regions, and then we have associated which is primary and which is standby. And then the next step we did is members. So depending on my architecture topology, I've added the compute and then the storage and then the database in the primary protection group. And then in the standby protection group, I've added the standby database. So let's just verify this quickly. Then we can move on to the next process. Right. So I can see all my members, right? Two volume groups, which is basically the boot volume replication for these two compute instance. And then I have my database here. And then in the other region, I have my standby database here. So I'm good with all the members and so on. So the next step would be to create a plan. Okay, so now what we have added the members, which is for my application. Then I can create the plans for this production group. So how you can create plan is you can go to this section called plans and then hit create plan. One important thing to note is all the plan creation execution has to be done from the standby DR protection group region. So if you try to create a plan in the primary region, it will fail. The reason is we want to eliminate the entire region outage, right? So in case if your primary region goes down, still you want to invoke your failover operations in an automated manner. So that's why we have uh, designed the service in such a way you can create all your plans, do the executions only from the standby production group region. So that's the first thing you need to make sure you are in the standby production group, which I am, and then hit create plan. Okay, so plan type, we have two types of plan. pretty simple. Switchover, it is for plan transition, right? If you're doing a plan maintenance, you can create a plan, switchover plan. And the failover plan is something for an unplanned disaster recovery, right? So if something really bad happens, then you want to invoke a failover plan. So you can create two plans depending on your requirement. So what I'm going to do as part of this demo, I'm going to do a switchover plan, right? I'm just going to give a name, new shop app, and then hit create. So what it does behind the scenes, right? What are members you have added, right? We introspect behind the scenes, okay, and then we create bunch of automated plans groups automatically. So that's what I mentioned in my slides. The service itself has the intelligence to go through all the members which you add, and then on top of it, we provide a bunch of plan groups as part of this plan. Okay, so it is still getting created. So it takes maybe a minute to get this done. So you can monitor this as well, right? If you click this plan and then you can see the work requests. So you can see what we are doing, validating the primary protection group and then reading the members and then validating the standby. So based on this, we'll be able to create the production group. Something has failed, which happens in the live demo. We'll see what happens. Okay, so I've selected a volume group which is not part of that. Maybe I have selected a duplicate one, but I can show another one which I've already created. So let me show the one which I already have, another one which is having a plan, right? So I've created this plan sometime before. Let me quickly go here. Okay, so if you notice, this is the plan, how it looks like once you create it. Okay, so I've added other user-defined groups which I'll talk about. But if you notice the built-in plans, right? So we create a built-in pre-checks automatically. Okay, and then on top of it, we provide bunch of built-in plan groups automatically. Okay, so if you notice, there is a plan group for stopping the compute instance and then switching over the volume groups, switching on autonomous database, launching my compute. All these built-in groups has been created by the service itself based on the members you added, right? So if you add different members depending on the topology, you might see different steps, right? So, but for this topology, right, the service created all these plan groups, and then on top of it, you can create additional user-defined plan group as well. Okay, so what I've done for this demo, right? If you notice this Excel, right? Let's just go back here. Okay, and I was showing, right, beyond the application like virtual machine and then database switchover, have bunch of application steps as well, right? I want to stop my application and then restart my application. I want to do some load balancer changes and DNS changes, right? So what functionality or thing we can do from full stack DI perspective is you can create user defined groups to achieve those tasks. Okay, so that's where the extensibility thing is pretty key to full stack DI. Okay, so beyond the inbuilt built-in plans, we provide a framework where you can create additional user-defined groups, right? So if you click add group, kind of because this plan is disabled, that's why it's not able to see that. What I've created bunch of user-defined groups. On top of it, I've customized to my requirement, right? So how you can do that? Once you click the user-defined groups, we'll ask for a step. Okay, let me do this. 1 second. I can show in another plan where I have something active. I know, like live demos, we'll have issues, so don't mind that. But I think you get it, right? Like what exactly we are trying to speak here. So I have plan. Okay, if you see, I have a bunch of other user defined. So this is how you can add a plan, additional user defined group. So you can give a name. So let's say I'm going to do a restore of a database valid, and then add step, and then you can add a step name, and then you can provide whether you want to continue an error or stop an error, and then timeout. And this where you can execute your scripts, right? So we have options to multiple ways you can run the script, right? So example, let's say if you have a local script which is placed in a VM which is running in Ashburn region, then you can select this path and then select the target instance and provide a parameter, okay? And then provide a user where you want to run. Okay, so what the service does, we call the scripts automatically by using the run command functionality available within OCI, and we'll execute the script. Okay. Similarly, you can place your script in the object storage in case if you want to store it in the object storage, you can put that and you can basically call that bucket and then the URL if you want, right? That's how you can do it in the object storage. Or else, if you're familiar with OCI functions, right? You can invoke the functions as well. So if you have created a function and then, sorry, an application, and then on top of it, if you have created function. So here, what I'm showing, I have a function which I've written where it can restart my compute VM or scale up and scale down my compute VMs, right? So it's up to your requirement. You can create functions depending on whatever you want to achieve, but we have integration available within the function which you can call, right? So you can call the script locally within the VM, or you can use functions to do that. Okay, so by using this, right, I have created bunch of user-defined groups, right? So if you notice, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 user-defined groups, which I think I need to do it as part of my overall switchover plan, right? So I have to remove my load balancer backends. I need to restore my database wallet, and then restore my application. And finally, add my standby load balancer backends once the VMs are up in the other region, right? So this is how you can customize the plan on top of the inbuilt plan, which we create automatically using our service. So you have a complete flexibility of creating whatever additional things you want to do on top of what we built automatically, right? And one thing I would like to show here as well. So once you create the plan, you can reorder the plan groups, right? So if you notice, we have this button where we can basically move around these plan groups, right? So this where you get a control of in specific order you want to do, right? Because there are order which we think which have to be ideal for this switchover, but once you add user defined groups, right, in specific order, maybe you need to reorder the steps. If you want, you can do that. So you have the complete flexibility of doing that as well. And also you can disable certain steps if you want, right? So let's say I don't want to run this plan group itself as a part of my this, then you can disable this, right? So if you notice, it is enabled here, and then I'm just hitting this disable. So when you execute this plan, right, we will skip this plan group, right? So if there are requirements, like you created a plan and then you customize it, and for some reason you don't want to run this because someone has did that manually for some reason, right? You can still go ahead and do this, execute this plan, but you can disable that specific task if you want to, right? So you have a complete control of what you want to do in terms of disabling and enabling the plan group. Okay, and then the final one I would like to show before executing the plan is, if you notice, there is a thing called plan step in my slide, right? I mean, basically, so each plan group has multiple steps, right? So this plan group has 2 steps, and then this plan group has 2 steps, and so on. But let's say if you have added 10 compute instances as part of your application, then it's going to be 10 compute instances for stopping, right? So each plan group can have individual steps which we want to do. And important thing to note is, we run all these plan groups serially, right? So let's say the built-in plan checks is completed, then we'll run the remove balancer, load balancer, and then we'll move on to the next group, right? Because we think there are dependencies for this. That's why we do this plan groups in a serial manner. But all the planned steps will be executed parallelly. So that's a important distinction you need to understand. All the plan groups will be run in a serial manner, but the steps inside the plan group, right, which you call the plan step, will be executed parallelly. Okay, so we have seen the plan, and I've created a plan, and I've customized the plan. So the next thing you can do is running a pre-checks, right? So before running the pre-checks, let's just verify the app. Okay, so this is my primary load balancer, which is hitting to this application. Okay, which is currently my MuseShop application. My application is up and running. Okay, and then let's say some disaster happens. Okay, so someone has misconfigured some load balancer, something happened. Okay, which caused a downtime on application, but you want to quickly bring your application back up in the other region, right? So imagine for that, if you have a plan created and then customized and ready to go, right? You can just jump into here and then execute a plan, right? So that's how you can take our service to an advantage to automate the entire process, right? So what I've shown till now is an Excel sample book, which you've seen how customers are doing through a manual process. And then the same application, right? I have automated that process within our service, and then I've customized certain steps on top of it with the exact requirements. Now I have the plan ready, right? And then what I'm going to do, this is a plan which is executed sometimes, since I've created new, which is not going to work because of some error. So I already show the execution which I've done, right? So if you notice, we have two types of execution. One we call as pre-checks. So the name suggests pre-checks is basically you are kind of doing a uh, uh, basically you're doing the pre-checks of your plan before actually doing the execution. So this is kind of a gives an assurance of your plan, right? Whether it will be running successfully before executing the actual plan, right? So this is a very good one. Whenever you want to invoke any plan, you do primarily the all the health checks, right? So you can execute the pre-checks for doing that completion. So if you notice the run, right, it took around a minute or around 2 minutes to complete this task. All the switch pre-checks has been completed successfully. So after the pre-checks are done, right, and then I can actually go ahead and do the execution of the plan itself. So that's where you are kind of moving your application stack or doing the disaster recovery, which is involving the downtime of your application, right? So the same thing you can do, right? Again, hitting the plan and then going to the plan execution, right? So sorry, I just want to do this. Yeah, once you click the plan, you can execute the plan here. Since the plan is inactive and it's not showing, but if the plan is active, it will be shown here. So and then you can hit and execute plan. So once the plan is hit executed, right, again it will go through the same kind of steps which I've talked about in the plan group, right? So it will first initiate this plan group and it will remove the load balancer, and then it will stop the compute instance. So whatever specific order we had, right, it goes through these all these steps, and then it will complete in an automated manner. So you get all the options, right? Example, you can view the log, you can download the log. So that's where the single pane of glass experience I was talking about, right? So imagine if you're doing it manually, you have to log in through console of, let's say, database, or you have to SSH to the compute instance and then SSH to the application instance, right? All the things which you do manually, which have to juggle through various places, can be completely done from a single place, right from doing the pre-checks, actual execution, and then troubleshooting, monitoring, all the things you can do within the full stack DS service itself, right? So with this, you can see we have transitioned the application and then completed the switchover. I now have my load balancer, which is kind of now, I mean, the application is running the Phoenix region, which is my new load balancer IP, where my application is back up and running again, right? So you have seen the huge business benefits you're getting with this service, right? You can avoid the human errors, and then you can completely automate the manual process. Or even if you're doing some automation, you can still bring in those automation scripts and then tie in with our service to even further reduce the downtime on an application. And then you can do this. I've just shown one example, right? But let's say if you are involved for multiple DR applications, right? Then you can invoke these kind of plans and then have it ready for all your application with each protection groups, and then you can do at scale according to your requirement. So with this, I've done with my demo. Let me quickly share my screen back. Right. So I've done my demo, and we have some resources as well which you can refer. So all these resources you can refer. Like we have our documentation page, and the live labs, which whatever the demo I've shown, you can actually try. This is a live lab link, right, which you can try it for free. You get this all this environment provision, and you get an email with it's ready to go, right? So it's pretty easy to get hands on if you want to try with our service. And we have created a bunch of YouTube playlists with various videos, right? And we keep adding with more and more videos in coming days. And as Violetta mentioned, we already have a full stack DR channel within the DevRel Slack channel, so you can join our channel. Our group, our team is monitoring there. So if you have any questions, you can post it there. We'll be able to help you guys. And user-defined scripts, right? We are also publishing some of the commonly user-defined scripts, which you can get reused it in case if you want to in this GitHub link, right? So we have a lot of resources to help you to get started with this service. So do take advantage of using these resources. Yeah, with that, I will hand it over to you, Anita.
All right. Thank you all for being here together with us today. I hope you enjoyed the session. Thank you, Suraj, for this great presentation and demo. Thank you, Santosh, Tom, for being here and helping with everything. And of course, we hope to see you soon. All right. Thank you all. Have a great day. Bye bye.